Okay, so all these effects whereby one link to another can be represented in what we call a food chain or a food web. Okay, so of course the food chain will be the less complicated form, while the food web is more likely to be that of an ecosystem within a region. Okay, the common thing between the both of them is that they both start off with your producers. Okay, so you definitely have to start off with producers, otherwise there is no food that is going to go up. Okay, what I do want to state here is that every time it goes from one to the next region, there is energy loss. Okay, so the primary consumer that consumes from the producer in this case is what we call the first trophic level. Okay, and the herbivore will be the second trophic level, omnivore the third trophic level, carnivore the fourth, and this tertiary consumer being the fifth in this case. Okay, so at every level from the producer to the primary consumer, for example, 90% of energy is lost. Okay, so which means to say that only 10% energy is brought to the next level. Okay, so at every level when energy is continuously being lost, you can see that why the food chains or the food webs can only be as high as maximum 5 levels. Okay, because energy is being lost, that's the first thing. Second thing is that you can see that the species, they are getting increasingly larger. So which means to say that their consumption of the previous prey or the animal in the previous trophic level has to be increased in terms of quantity, in terms of numbers. Okay, so it doesn't make sense for us to have a huge quantity of tertiary consumer while very small amounts of producers. It is always the reverse, whereby the producers, the first trophic level, the second trophic level, so on and so forth, will be much more variable and larger in number compared to the top predator. Okay, so in this food web, the top predator is the mountain lion. So the mountain lion has several sources of food. They are not present in large numbers because of energy loss, and also because it has to consume a larger number of prey to make up for its calories intake. Okay, so in a balanced ecosystem, the number of organisms are constant over time. Okay, so which means to say that the number of prey will start up first, so there will be an increase in prey to enable that the predator number is able to rise slowly as they feed on the prey. Okay, so when there is a drop in the number of prey, there will also be followed by a drop in the number of predators. Okay, so this trend will take place over several periods, several weeks or months. Okay, so it doesn't mean that when the prey immediately drops, the number of predators will drop. It does not happen that way because the effect of the dropping in the prey is gradual, unless there is a sudden change in the climate, or they are suddenly being killed by mankind or parasites, etc. Usually it's a gradual fall, so that will give the predators time to adjust, and it will slowly fall as well. Okay, so over time you can see that a balance will be reached in the entire ecosystem if the ecosystem is stable, if there are no disturbance. Okay, not if there are disturbance, if there are no disturbances. Okay, so how is this possible? Is because we have this thing that is called the energy flow. So as we saw earlier, all your producers are autotrophs, which are made up of plants. So what autotrophs do is that they will actually use light energy, okay, and convert it to chemical energy, which is the organic glucose. Okay, this part you have learned it in the chapter for photosynthesis. So energy is then transferred down the entire food chain by themselves. Okay, so once the plant makes glucose and is consumed by the consumers, this glucose in the consumers is converted to the energy, and this energy has a name for it, which is called ATP. Okay, You do not have to know what ATP stands for. It is just ATP, which is the energy currency, and the process to create this ATP by using glucose in animals is called respiration. Okay, so as mentioned earlier on, throughout this entire process, once the food is consumed, heat energy is being given out at about 90%. Okay, so there's 90% waste at every trophic level, and only 10% is being transferred to the next trophic level. Okay, so therefore, in order to sustain a specific food chain, what has to be done is that the total amount of energy has to be sufficient, which is why the amount of or the number of predators, number of prey, and the number of producers at each trophic level, it is controlled carefully in an ideal ecosystem as long as there are no disturbances. Okay.